All right. Welcome everyone to our fourth AI in Action webinar. My name is Dr. Tom Pantasis, and I am an instructional designer with the Teaching and Learning Center. I want to thank you all for being here with us today, either in person in the live event or watching this recording afterwards. We appreciate that you're taking some time to learn more about AI in different education contexts. I also want to take this instant to thank today's presenter, Dr. Kelly Fisher, for sharing some of her wisdom and experience with us today. But before we get started, just a couple housekeeping items to go over with everyone. And as always, my slide never advances when I want it to. As I mentioned, this is part of a larger series this semester. This is our upcoming schedule. If you're interested in attending any of these future sessions, I will have a link to the registration page in the chat in just a moment. You do have to register for each one individually, and the times and dates do vary, but you'll see we have one per week. If you want to just scan this QR code to get to the registration page, you can do that too. You can hit pause, make that happen. In addition to this webinar series, TLC also has AI resources available on our website. These resources include things like sample syllabus statements, tips to consider when talking to students about AI, strategies, and links to relevant TLC AI blog posts, which you see here on the screen. I will put the link to both the website and the blog in the chat in just a moment as well. The blog holds a collection of lots of different types of resources, including past webinar recordings, posts from fellow Westchester faculty about how they're addressing AI, podcast episodes. There's just really a whole collection of stuff. And we are consistently adding new material to the blog, so we encourage you to check it out on a regular basis. And again, if you would like to pause and just scan those QR codes to get to those resources, you can do that as well. All right. Last thing I want to call everyone's attention to is the relatively new AI guiding framework that the university put out. We have 6 key recommendations. I encourage you to check that out if you have a spare few minutes and you have not done so already. So our agenda for today is on the screen. If you have any questions while the presentation is going on, please put them in the chat. I'll keep an eye on that. We want to wait to answer questions and have some discussion until after Dr. Fisher has given her presentation. We'll use the last 10 minutes to do that. I'm going to stop sharing now so that our presenter can get set. While they are getting ready, let me introduce you to Dr. Kelly Fisher, who, according to the website, is an associate professor in the Department of Management. And she is presenting on using ChatGPT for student reflections. And so at this point, I will say, take it away, Dr. Fisher.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you for all the work you're doing in this area. It's so helpful to have those resources, and I'm thrilled to have the opportunity to present here and maybe engage with other colleagues across the campus on using AI in our courses. So, as Tom mentioned, I'm an associate professor in the Department of Management, and to give you a little bit of context around this assignment, it was for a online asynchronous graduate level course. And the assignment was to provide an alternative way for my students to write a leadership reflection. So let me just step through, my rationale for doing this, the benefits, and then I'll talk a little bit about how I implemented this in my course, and happy to answer any questions. So the reason I did this was that I was not happy with my students' leadership reflections, and this was really an opportunity for them to develop their own leadership capacity by reflecting on all the course content and how it applied to their own professional experiences. So I thought I would experiment with the AI to help scaffold their experiences so that they can focus a little bit more on integrating the theory. So the challenge here was, the deep reflection necessary for leadership development. And I thought AI would be an unusual but effective thought partner, while still allowing the students to maintain their own authentic leadership journey. So the students still have to write a reflection paper using the guidelines given in the syllabus, but they used a AI generated document that acted as a scaffold, similar to that old fashioned outline we used to do when we were writing research papers. And the aim of this exercise for, whether it's AI or not, was to help students develop greater self-awareness and add to their leadership growth. And in this instance, through an AI assisted reflection. So the benefits of AI and reflection writing, well, that structured prompting helped students overcome writer's block and self-censorship. They're able to maintain consistency in their reflection practice throughout the entire paper. They don't lose sight of the overall aim of the paper. And it helps them draw connections between their experience and their leadership theories. So then I want to talk a little bit about the practical implementation of that. So the first thing you want to do is set up the AI environment. And that means, one, choosing the appropriate AI tool. For example, ChatGPT, Claude, or any other AI tool that you're familiar with. And that would be free, ideally, for the students. You will want all the students to use this same tool to ensure consistency and how the output is from the AI generated reflection. And then secondly, you want to create clear boundaries for that kind of AI assistance. So for example, students had to attach their AI generated document to their formal written leadership reflection. So the AI reflection was simply to provide a scaffold or outline for them. They still had to write their own reflection. Important to all of this was having an effective prompting strategies. And if you've worked with AI at all, this is both an art and a science. So the first thing I did was I created a long, detailed prompt for students to use. And for my courses, I'm currently using ChatGPT. And that involved creating a specific context, for the prompt. And that essentially meant, stating the purpose of the exercise. For example, this exercise is designed for me to reflect on the leader I am now and the key experiences that have shaped me into the leader I am today, as well as help me look into the future. The second step for an effective prompting strategy is to use a specific scenario as a reflection anchor. So I asked them to write about a leadership challenge from 5 years ago or within the 5-year time span. So it's still semi-fresh. Thirdly, I designed the ChatGPT to request theory connections and alternative perspectives. So the way I wrote that is I asked students to reflect on their effectiveness as a leader in a situation, considering aspects like communication, decision-making, team dynamics, and management of ethical issues. And then fourthly, I ensured that the ChatGPT did an iterative refinement of the responses or the insights. And that meant I asked, the ChatGPT was written to say, please ask me questions one at a time, waiting for my answer before asking the next question, blah, 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 until you have enough to suggest my effectiveness as a leader in this situation, considering aspects like communication, decision-making, team dynamics, and management of ethical issues. So that was kind of like a friendly writing coach as they worked through this ChatGPT reflection prompt. So one of the challenges, perhaps, once you assign an AI assisted assignment, is how do you assess that? And for me, there's two approaches, right? You can do quantitative, you can do qualitative, or even combine both. So to assess their deliverables, I use both quantitative and qualitative. And for quantitative metrics, I evaluated, did it meet the word count? Did they have the minimum number of theoretical connections made from the course concepts, which for me was 5? And did they appropriately cite and reference and have their list of references at the bottom of the paper? For the qualitative assessment criteria, I looked at their depth of personal insight, just how honest and open they were and willing to look at both their strengths and their weaknesses. Some students are incredibly open and willing to share, where they still need to do work. Others, not so much. I also looked for evidence of critical thinking, and that was whether they were able to appropriately and accurately integrate the theories from the course concept, from the course, into their different situations and reactions within this leadership experience that they wrote about. Yeah, and the application of the relevant theories. So in my rubric, I had 4 different components. I kept it simple. This is an formative assessment. It's at the end of the course. And I'm generally don't grade those with detailed feedback. I'm just looking for them to meet the minimum criteria. And so I looked for paper structure on a 1 to 5 scale, that they follow the guidelines. It was organized and logical. I looked for the quality of their critical thinking, mastery of course materials through appropriate integration of course concepts, synthesis of multiple theories. The third component was content and focus. Did they discuss all the questions thoroughly? Did they connect it to their own practical experiences? And then fourth, of course, was the grammar and mechanics. Overall, evaluate for a professional business quality communication. And I want to also talk about some of the best practices and pitfalls or cautions when inviting students to use AI as a thought coach. And for best practices for the students, you want to remind them that they have to maintain ownership of their own personal insights, that the reason they're doing this is to develop their own leadership capacity. And they want to use AI as a dialogue partner, not the writer. And part of that is make sure that this reflection is integrated with their own personal leadership development goals. And then the cautions that students should be aware of is to not be over reliant on the AI generated content. They are still responsible for the accuracy, and that you'll hold them for any quote of hallucinations in the document. And that you want to also caution students to not lose their authentic voice and reflection. And this would be done by simply cutting and pasting their reflection paper back into ChatGPT or the AI tool and say, format for a graduate level paper. You want to reinforce that their authentic voice is valuable, and that you'll be evaluating that approach. And then finally, that they shouldn't engage at a superficial level with the AI prompts when they respond to the individual sequential prompts from AI. The quality of the paper will be reflected in how thoroughly and honestly that they respond to these prompts. And I would even suggest that they do this a couple times and refine their responses as a way to coach, perhaps also coach AI into more clearly responding to, the communication and team dynamics in their leadership experience. So that's my graduate level online synchronous assignment in a nutshell. I think this can work well also in a face-to-face undergraduate course. It might even be a little easier to do that in class as a short 30-minute assignment. I found that the papers that were AI generated, used AI as a reflection assistant, were better quality than the majority of the papers, that's where students chose not to use an AI tool in their reflection paper. I found that AI can and should be an enhancer, not a replacer of personal reflection. And I measured success using this tool. That I got students reported deeper insights and that they met all the criteria of the assignment. So for me, it was a real win-win, and I recommend experimenting with this, trying this assignment, and I'm happy to answer any questions at this point.
I have questions. So you talked a little about how you identified an appropriate AI tool, and it just got me thinking, like, what did you mean by appropriate? Um,
Um, well, first, at least in our College of Business, it's free, the appropriate tree. So not asking students to pay for a tool. And then there are some distinctions between, say, ChatGPT and Claude. Claude apparently has more of ethical constraints around its responses versus ChatGPT, but that's evolving. I don't know what tool is going to be on the horizon, at the end of the semester or next semester. So I would just encourage anybody who chooses to use an AI tool like this, do a little background research on the efficacy and the ethics of this tool.
you also mentioned consistency being important and part of that tool discussion. And that I think what I was hearing is you wanted students to be getting similar responses. Um, AI doesn't generate the exact same thing with the exact same prompt. It does change. So uh, I guess the question I'm looking at there is, did you see any consistency in the way students were engaging with the prompt that helped like support that idea because you asked them to use the same tool?
So the reason I asked them to use the same tool, and I'm sorry if that wasn't clear, is that I have a paragraph, that long paragraph in
Mhm.
my appendix that students have to cut and paste into the AI tool. If you use a different the ChatGPT, so the prompt will, the AI tool will treat the prompt differently. So that was my caution. And that's why I recommend using this, asking students to use the same AI tool, whether it's ChatGPT or Claude or whatever, just to make sure that the prompt is treated the same way, that the students have the same experience. And no, but the cool thing about the iterative part of this prompt is that the AI tool will tailor its follow-up question based on the student's response. And that's why I encourage, the caution for the student is make sure you engage deeply, not shallowly, with this AI tool, and go through it a couple times and just spend a little more time fleshing out your responses, because you're going to get a richer, deeper reflection if you'll just put in the time.
So related to that, how did the students do with kind of maintaining that accuracy element you talked about? Like, were students for the most part pretty good about demonstrating that depth and criticality? Or
They
did you
did.
see some examples of like, yeah, that's copy and paste?
Well, I was pleasantly surprised because I don't know, because perhaps because I acknowledged and encouraged and challenged them to use this tool. Um, they were they weren't there wasn't a motivation to just, say, AI, write me a leadership reflection with these elements in it. And the other thing is, of course, having a paper trail by asking them to attach the AI generated transcript or whatever you want to call it to their leadership reflection paper, also provides some quality control, right? Of that they are writing their own reflection. And of course, in my appendix, I have um, specific scaffolding for the paper itself. So they had guidelines for that. So they had to follow those guidelines. So they had to write the paper on their own. But as I mentioned, the AI generated reflection was like a very detailed outline or a writing coach for them that helped them write to all the criteria and help them focus on connecting their experiences to the course concepts. And I was thrilled. So great questions, Tom.
Yeah. Things that pop up as I was listening. Does our other guest have any questions they want to ask?
Hey, I'm just wondering how many, is this the first semester you're doing it? How many semesters have you been doing this? And have you seen a shift um in the quality of what you're getting?
So this is my third semester, and I have not seen a shift in the quality. It's been pretty consistent. Um, what I have seen, so full disclosure, I give students a choice of either doing it the old-fashioned way and following my appendix guideline, or using the ChatGPT prompt. And every semester, a few more students raise their hand and say they're going to do this. I also have a tutorial that walks them through the process. I don't know. The graduate students seem to be terrified of using any kind of AI tool. And the undergrads, not so much.
Hmm.
But they just seem more comfortable with it. And I'm considering, and maybe the two of you could give me feedback on this, on requiring them to use this AI tool the next time I teach this particular course. Thoughts?
We have an undergrad course that requires AI for one of the assignments, and I asked the faculty member to gather some feedback from the students. And it was interesting because I was expecting them to be all in because it's a 200 level undergraduate course. And quite a few said they felt like it was harder, which was good because I thought it pushed them to really think. She gave them a prompt just like you did and had them engage and refine. And in general, they viewed it positively, but a few of them, and I don't know the demographics of those students, they could have been older non-traditional students, but a few did say this was a lot harder. I think I would have rather done it myself. um, so
Interesting.
that was interesting feedback. The majority really liked it, but it could be an age thing or just a tech thing. I do think it was a little bit more work to do it with the AI than the old assignment. So
Okay. Yeah. Hmm.
My initial reaction to your like requirement is always like, ooh, do we need to do that? And I think it would like depend a little bit on the goals you're trying to accomplish, because I do think it's important for students to get some experience in an environment like this one where the stakes of using it are very different than in a professional setting where it might have come with more consequence. Um, but at the same time, this is not like other tools. There's a lot of complexity in decision making around using it or not, um, in terms of the labor that went into building them and the way there was like some exploitation and the environmental question mark that sits around these tools, and the copyright aspect. So like I just rattled off three right there, but there's a lot of um, areas where students could have ethical concerns. In this example that you've provided for this particular course, it sounds like students can choose not to go that route. So and I could also think of certain course contexts where it would make sense to say, I want you to try this. You need to try this. Uh, so I don't have a good answer to your question of
No, that is
requiring
brilliant.
is good or not.
Yeah, that was absolutely brilliant. Yeah. So, um, and also, best practices is, give especially graduate students a choice. They feel more empowered. So, it's
Mhm.
an easy way to help them feel empowered. But I can see maybe in a different type of course where I would say, okay, kids, we're going to go for it. And I'm here to walk you through the entire
And,
thing, the entire way.
and
So
it,
yeah, I think there's a time and a place and a rationale for
maybe some of
requiring
that choice too becomes what tool,
that.
because different AI tools have different pieces, as you talked to with Anthropic's Claude, the perception is it has slightly better guardrails and ethical pieces that went into it. And there are plenty of other models out there um, that folks can engage with. So maybe that's the trade-off if you say you have to use one, but you can pick.
Yeah.
Any other questions? No, we're good. All right. Well, thank you, Kelly, for your presentation today. We really appreciate it. And thank you, Michelle, for joining us and giving us a little bit of an audience. Um,
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.